Alright then, it's time to continue with my revisiting of the Batman Arkham series. Today, I'll be looking over City, the follow-up to the fantastic Asylum that many consider to be even better than that game. But that's a pretty high bar set by the last entry, so let's see if I am with the majority on this one. Our new setting is, surprise surprise, Arkham City, a blocked off section of Gotham turned into the new home for all the low-life thugs and villains by corrupt Professor Hugo Strange. The story begins with Bruce Wayne protesting the closure of Arkham City before being arrested by Tiger mercenaries and sent to the facility where Hugo Strange reveals that he knows who Batman is, apparently a tradition for these Batman game sequels, and begins the countdown for what he calls Protocol 10 before throwing him into the chaos. After a not too pleasant welcome from the Penguin, Bruce dons the cowl of the Dark Knight once again, and as Batman, you'll traverse the highest heights and the darkest depths of Arkham City, encountering a whole host of foes whilst the clock on Protocol 10 and Batman and Joker's lives continues to count down. I was intrigued to see how the story would hold up on this playthrough, because a common complaint among fans is that the game features too many villains. But in my Arkham Asylum review, I made the observation that the environment allowed the numerous super criminals to show up naturally, so I was curious to go back into Arkham City with that mindset. And okay, it's weird to see an A-list villain like Two-Face get about the same screen time as a less popular character like Zsasz in the last game, and you also don't see a whole lot of the main mastermind of the story either. Which actually kind of works. I was actually reminded a bit of Breath of the Wild on this playthrough. Wonder Tower is this looming presence over the rest of the world, much like Hyrule Castle, and while the story might seem a little basic, if you go out of your way to find Zelda's diary, or in this case the interview tapes, you'll find new depth added to these characters. But that is side content, so going back to the main story for now, and while Asylum undeniably has the tighter narrative, City still manages to be just as compelling, if not a little more so. This is such a great interpretation of the Batman universe, with every character leaving an impression, even those who appear briefly. Batman himself, who's once again flawlessly portrayed by Kevin Conroy, really goes for a wide range of emotions in this game. You get the calculating badass, the brutal and desperate warrior, a bit of the tragic avenger, he even gets a little bit of deadpan humor too.
Yeah. You a fan?
No.
The plot may lack the same level of focus as before, but it leads to what feels like an all-encompassing Batman tale, which packs in some unforgettable moments along the way, most notably, the ending. Of course I'm not going to spoil it for those who don't know what happens, but this has my favourite final scene in any video game. Heck, until I saw La La Land, I would have said it's my favourite final scene, period. But still, it's an unforgettable conclusion. I'm even talking about the credits. The music that plays really gives off this indescribable atmosphere that lingers throughout the entire post-game. It's such a perfect moment. But talking of atmosphere, it really elevates the story and the game in general. The visuals look absolutely amazing, from the looming skyscrapers of Gotham looking down upon Arkham City, the sheer detail of Easter eggs and references hidden on the grimy streets and the interior locations too. This game feels lived in and is full of personality, from those different stories you get from solving riddles to even the banter between thugs. It's sometimes just so entertaining to stop and listen to some of their conversations. True, you'll start to notice they're the same couple of voice actors, including one Nolan North.
It was disgusting. And that's coming from a serial murdering cannibal.
And that's coming from the homicidal treasure hunter. But just like before, all of the voice work is so damn good it's hard to mind, and the fact you have these random goons going through their own dilemmas, including a recurring gang war between Joker, Penguin, and Two-Face's men, makes this world seem that much more alive, and getting to play as Catwoman in her own subplot gives you a more hands-on look at this ongoing fight. Arkham City provides one of the most exciting game worlds I've ever visited, a place filled with mystery, mood, and excitement where there's just as much to learn outside of the main story as there is in it. It's also a treat to explore. Gliding over the rooftops feels great, and dive bombing before flying even further is a satisfying new feature. And if you do the AR challenges, you'll get the grapnel boost that'll enable you to ping right over buildings. Actually, I didn't get this till the end of my first playthrough, but I really do recommend you collect it as early as you can because it makes traversal much easier and fun. Because we're in a more overworld environment, there's now some side quests for you to do. Not all of them are huge ordeals, from merely picking up a gadget to some quick encounters, but they're all quite a bit of fun. Some you can do as you progress through the story, others are random, but you get treated to even more villains and they're fairly varied. From scanning an environment, a mad dash across the city, and the return of the Riddler's Challenge. There's now 400 Riddler trophies and teasers to solve, but now you get these very inventive death rooms that are really cool with occasionally clever solutions. And because the game is set in an overworld, it's a lot more ideal to search for all of the trophies, with excellent use of Batman's gadgets, both returning and new, making tracking them down an extremely enjoyable ordeal. I haven't found all of them yet, but I'm pretty close on my first save. In certain fights, one goon might be highlighted in green. If you leave him the last man standing, you can interrogate them so riddle and trophy locations show up on the map. Not only is that helpful to the search, but trying to keep them conscious can actually be pretty difficult, adding a fun challenge to combat. Oh, and finally speaking about combat, it was a revelation back in Asylum and it still plays great there today, so there wasn't too much for the sequel to improve upon. And yeah, it's mostly the same as before. You've got some new takedowns and the inclusion to use quick-fire gadgets. Those are good new additions that fit in with the already great fighting system. But the biggest improvement for me is the size of the crowds you'll be up against. There's a scene where Batman has to take on a whole horde of enemies, and while I guess it's supposed to be a hellish scenario, it's heavenly for the player. It's so incredibly satisfying to rack up a large combo, weaving from enemy to enemy seamlessly. Taking on a huge group with ease really makes you feel like Batman, and thankfully that sums up the majority of the hands-on battles in this game. Not to mention the music is so damn invigorating. Oh my god, how have I not talked about the soundtrack yet? It's easily one of my favorite OSTs of all time, and one that really elevates the experience, which is what any great score should do. It creates another layer of ambiance to exploration, adds extra excitement to the fight. I can't imagine the game being the same without this particular bombastic score pumping me up at every instance it's there. Playing this in Asylum back-to-back really showed how much the Predator mode really came into its own in this game. Not only is it a frequenter addition, but it's really enthralling fast-paced stealth. You can patiently survey the scene and mess with a henchman, or if you're good enough, quickly sneak around picking off your armed foes one by one. There's some great new features too, from a disruptor that makes one gun
2 guns, bitch!
Alright, no need to be rude. 2 guns unusable, leading to some very fun confrontations with the thugs. There's also a knockout smash if you want to speed up the silent takedowns, but alert enemies to your location so you'll have to be strategic about when and where you use it. Oh, it's just fantastic fun. This is also where the revamped challenge mode really shines. With the campaigns that require you to add tweaks such as a time limit or a health regenerator, challenges you have to complete in the Predator levels, and getting to play as the different characters along with the Riddler's entertaining commentary, I've spent quite a lot of time trying to get those medals. The 2 fighting types are just a joy. It's not amazingly challenging, but it controls so well, and having the enemies use new weapons against you as the game progresses means that there's always the need to try a new strategy. There's also some great boss fights thrown in for good measure, especially Mr. Freeze, an intense encounter in which you can never use the same trick twice. I also love that despite the cinematic flair given to the story, they feel so video gamey, and it's as exciting to play as the rest of the game. This whole game really is a masterclass in how to do a video game sequel. It takes the winning formula of the previous game, adds to, and in this case perfect it, all while expanding the world and stakes in thrilling ways. And this time, there's much more to come back to outside of revisiting the story. There's hours of fun to be had in the previously mentioned challenge room, a new game plus mode I've yet to properly dive into, the different side quests, the Riddler challenges, and a fun little story DLC in Harley Quinn's Revenge. Batman Arkham City is like an orchestra. You have all of these different and unique elements, the multiple gameplay types, the world, story, and presentation attempting to work off each other, and Rocksteady conducts everything into a perfect harmony. It's a symphonic video game. Look, Arkham Asylum is great, don't get me wrong, but this is something else. It's absolutely one of my favorite games of all time, and because it's available on most consoles, it might just be my favorite multi-platform game too. The final hour is so riveting, I actually started to get sad on this playthrough knowing I was nearing the end of the game. That's because the whole thing is phenomenally entertaining, drenched in amazing atmosphere, and giving us wonderful versions of these characters and a fantastic narrative that hooks you from the instantly gripping opening right up to the unbelievably good climax. It's a complete package in every sense of the term, without a dull moment, and a constant reminder of what it is that makes video games such a wonderful pastime. I can't recommend the damn thing enough. I just love it.
You learn something every day, don't you?
Force is strong in this one.